that is already backstage. Let me put this one up. And Matt, will you do the honors to put Ashari? I hope I pronounced it
Sure.
correctly because
Yeah,
it is
yeah, that's right.
so Ashara. Okay, thank you. God, that's one thing I
Hi.
haven't done.
Good
Hi.
afternoon or good morning, wherever you are in the world.
Yep.
So we are just about on time, I think. So let me get your slides on the screen, and we'll give you the floor.
Absolutely, it's Ashari. It's all up to you now, and
Cool.
we have your slides on board. We have you in screen, so take it away and blow them away. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So with that, let's get started. So today we are mainly like gonna speak about like discuss about zero trust security for your APIs. This is also like one of my favorite topic you can say. A brief introduction about myself. Like currently, I'm working as a developer advocate at Mulesoft, a Salesforce company, and I have been working on Mulesoft as a technology for over 5 years now. I've recently published a book as well, which is like Mulesoft for Salesforce developers. It's available on Amazon, and yeah, I've been blogging, speaking at several sessions. So apart from this, I love photography and traveling, and yeah, I would be happy to connect with you guys maybe over LinkedIn or on Twitter as well. So with that, what we'll be discussing today, like quickly in this lightning session, is like what is the need for API security, and mainly we'll be starting like we'll be getting to know like what is zero trust security, how do we implement zero trust security briefly, and then we'll also address all your questions about it. And yeah, just a forward-looking statement uh, for your purchasing decisions, definitely. So with that, let's get started. So we all know that the APIs have been actually increase. I mean, the use of APIs has been increasing at an exponential rate, and over the past few years, the API security has actually been a severe concern. So almost 41% of organizations have supported API security, and that's a fact. But apart from this, APIs are actually proliferating in a different environment or different ecosystems, we can say. So with this API ecosystem expanding and expanding to different verticals or different areas or different cloud, you can say, so it gets difficult to manage all these APIs. And with all these issues, it's actually impacting the API security. So our API security is actually becoming the major concern. So you must have like there might be, I mean, definitely there might be some GTA fans here, and even if you're not a GTA fan, you must have definitely heard this news sometime like some few months back that there has been like just before the GTA 6 game release, right? There was some major videos and stuff about the game which was leaked, and this has actually impacted the organization at a high level. I mean, from financial perspective, and that was like quite a devastating effect. So there were also some news like this was done by someone internal. I mean, there's no concrete information on that, but yeah, there was some news as well. So imagine a attack of this level on your organization or on your data security, which is impacting your security. If that can be so devastating that it is actually taking you down. So, and if this is done by someone who's an internal person, then how important is API security and whom should you be trusting? So that is the main question here. I mean, even relating to our topic, like whom should you be actually trusting? So as zero trust security says, you should be trusting no one, and you should be always verifying whoever whoever the entity is. So zero trust security is not just applying. I mean, in this session we'll be mainly talking about the API, but it's an architectural security framework, you can say, which is like mainly applying to different enterprise technology system, different ecosystem. You can actually apply this on different kind of application and everywhere. But in this session, we are mainly and particularly interested in how do we apply zero trust security for your APIs. Before going ahead, like let's see like what are the four pillars or what are the main principles of zero trust security. So first one, as we said, the trust no one and always verify, which states that we are actually going to verify each and every entity who's going to send us request or who's going to ask us a request for. We are not going to blindly give access to anyone, or we are by default it's going to be deny. So that comes to our second principle as well. We are going to make sure that we are going to give the least amount of privileges to each of the users, and by default it's going to be deny. Just like the way we are using our, maybe you can say, a word document, or we're sharing with someone, we make sure that it's not the editor rights that we are giving. We give them a kind of commenter or viewer rights, which means that we are giving the least possible rights. After that, we'll be having full visibility and inspection. So as we said that the APIs have been sprawling into different environments, different ecosystem, it gets difficult to actually have a centralized control and where the data is coming from, how is the data being processed, or what is the incoming outgoing data. To avoid this thing, we actually need a full visibility and full control over our entire API ecosystem. And that is like the thought principle that how are we going to, I mean, we need to have full visibility and inspection. Apart from that, we are also concerned about the centralized management. As we said, like the APIs are sprawling across different environments, and that's the reason we do not have a centralized management system. And when a centralized management system lacks, like you're not able to have a full control over your APIs, and that's where there are loopholes in the security. So the four pillars, which you can say, is like we're not going to trust anyone. We are going to give the least privileges and access, and by default, it will be deny. We're going to have a full visibility and control of our API, and we are going to do all these things via centralized management approach. So let's further extend this ideology, the architectural framework, zero trust security, to our APIs and see how we can achieve it. So if you see over here we have actually a pattern, I mean a mesh-like architecture wherein you can say your APIs, it could be REST APIs, it could be any kind of API and different kinds of application. You can also see Workday, SAP, and all of these things. They're interconnected to each other in like a service, a mesh-like architecture, and there is a exchange of data going on. So when you have such a complex ecosystem of different end systems, APIs, and everything in place, how do you manage to achieve security for your architecture, for your ecosystem? So the question here is, how are you going to make sure that you're applying zero trust security? So the way is like using a layered security approach. So layered security approach means, in each level or each peripheral level, or at every end, you're going to make sure that there is a security layer which has been enforced. So if you see the bigger rectangle, the red dots, which is like actually telling you that there is a layered security towards the edge, the outermost periphery, and the innermost, which says that at each and every component, wherever there is a request, response, or transaction taking place, you're applying a API security. And this security could be via terms of policy or any other security method which you wish to apply. We'll see like how are we going to apply them. So tools in action, this is a lightning one, so I'm not sure how much tools in action we'll be doing, but yeah, we'll just make sure like we'll be on time and we'll do it. So an order management system, that is what I've used for a reference here. So you can see like there are different end systems which are involved, like the desktop, laptop, the emailing system and all, and there are also different end systems towards the system, towards the lower edge, which is like Salesforce, Workday. They are connecting. So these are like the different APIs which are interconnecting with each other. They are fetching data from the backend system, and this is actually your API ecosystem, or your infrastructure, your API ecosystem basically. So if you can see this M dotted components, you can assume that they are your APIs, and over them we have applied different policies like the rate limiting, custom policy, JWT policy, header injection. So at each and every stage, wherever there is an incoming record or wherever there is a transaction taking place, there is an incoming data and outgoing data. Basically, whenever there is an API call triggered, you're making sure that you're always verifying the call before providing the information to the user. So that is what we say zero trust security, and we're not trusting any of the call, no matter from whom is sending the request or whatsoever. Okay. Please feel free to drop your questions in between. Like, yeah, this is going to be a lightning session, but still, like, we'll try to cover most of them. So going ahead, like from the previous one itself, like we have seen that there was an architecture on which we are going to apply security at each level, each and every level. So this is an API which is like connecting with the backend system. You can say it's a database system, and I'm applying a JWT security policy at it. So similarly, we'll be applying the security policies across each and every endpoints, and that's how we are going to create a mesh of security. So suppose if there is a request coming from the upper layer, from my desktop or machine, and then it's coming all the way towards my Salesforce end, it has to pass through all the security stages at every end, and that's how I'm ensuring I'm securing my API ecosystem. So now let us see. Yeah, we'll be coming on the Mulesoft side as well. Mulesoft is like a Mulesoft Anypoint platform. Basically, is the world's number one integration and API platform. It's an API management tool, an iPaaS solution, which will be helping you to unlock your data, which will be helping you to manage your entire API lifecycle, your entire API ecosystem. You can design your APIs, build your APIs, publish your APIs to Exchange, and manage your APIs as well. You can apply security policies, you can have a full control over your API at one single place. So we'll definitely see about more about it in the upcoming slides. But before going there, like how do we apply zero trust security from a developer perspective? Because it's often misunderstood that API security, it's only, I mean, something for the senior devs or maybe for architects or the enterprise architects who are going to take care of security. But that's not correct. I mean, if you are aiming to achieve zero trust security at the developer stage or at every stakeholder level or at every each and every level, there is some responsibility which you need to ensure that you're like taking care of. So we have these two developer personas. First is Maxi, who's an API developer, and second one is Dan, who's an API owner. So let's see how we can help these two, like as an API developer, as an API owner, how are we going to help these two to achieve API security and also to perform their task. So Maxi, who's an API developer, her task is to design API, okay, using the API first approach, and she is going to like build the application using this API. She's going to test this application. So how is she going to achieve all of this thing? And while she is building her API, how does she assures that the API security is taken care of? So let's go to Anypoint platform. Okay, sorry. So in Anypoint platform, like this is the Anypoint platform I was talking to you about, like the iPass solution, which is like going to take care of the API management tool, the iPass solution. So going ahead to the design center, this is the place where I'm actually going to design my API. It's not necessary you have to design your APIs here. You can design your API in any API editor tool or any tool which is of your choice, and you can import it here. But I'll be just opening one of the API which I already have for the demo purpose. Okay. And while Maxi is designing this API, she can ensure that she is applying some security standards to her API. She's applying some rule sets, governance rule set to her API. So let me just open this thing up. Okay. Using the design center, also like while it's been opening, yeah, using the design center, you can actually build any kind of API. I mean, you can build the API specification, which could be REST API, or you can have your async APIs as well. If you're someone who's like completely new to API designing, it will be guiding you to the process as well, like how do you design your API. So yeah, API is already open. So if you see, I've already applied a secure by component over here. So although this is like an initial stage, I'm making sure that my API is bounded by the security policies or mechanism. At this stage, definitely my API won't be like, we are not going to validate it, but we can actually simulate it by using a mocking service. So suppose this is my endpoint, which I have applied a basic authentication, and I try to send a send request. It will be giving me an error saying that the validation has failed. But as soon as I enter any random username password, it should be giving me a response. So this is like you're not validating it, but you're actually simulating it. And this is how it will be when you're actually implementing your API. So right at the designing stage, I'm making sure that I'm applying some security standards so that the quality is maintained. I can also apply some security governance rule sets to my API. So the rule sets like security authentication best practices. So you guys must have used SonarQube or any other coding convention tools while you're designing your application, which gives you a response like there has been few bugs, the coding standards are not proper, the lines, the comments are not proper, something like that. Similarly, at the API design stage itself, you can ensure that you're applying like the security governance policies. Let me show you guys this thing in the files. Yeah. So if suppose if any of the security tags are not present or if the best practices are not taken care while I'm designing an API, so it should be giving me an alert that my API is non-conformant and it is not matching the standards. So that is one thing you can do as a developer, that ensure that your design first approach while you're building your API is correct. You're taking care all the security perspective while you're designing the API. So this you're preventing the further iterations while you're in the developing stage of the API or while you're in the consuming stage of the API. Okay. And yeah, this is something, I mean, suppose if there is a new developer as well who's joining in and he's trying to work on this API. So if he misses any of this parameter, the security parameter is, if he forgets to add any of them, he'll be getting an alert or maybe an error in the API that he needs to add security parameter and he has missed it. So this way at the developer stage as well, you're ensuring that you're adding the API security. Moving ahead to the next one. Okay, this needs to be loaded. Okay. Um, sorry. So yeah, we have seen like how we have helped Maxi to build her APIs from the scratch and implement the test logic and following the security standards as well. So going ahead, we have Dan, who's an API owner. And his main responsibility, like as an API owner, what is your main responsibility is like to secure your API, to manage API, to apply some security policies, proxy, basically management of different. I mean, suppose if you're having hundreds of APIs and you need to manage them, so managing them under different framework or a different portal will be so difficult. So that's why you need to have a centralized portal, a centralized access where you're actually managing your API. So let us see. I mean, with respect to this previous diagram, which we have, I mean, the order management system use case which we have seen. So suppose if this is my layer of API ecosystem, or this is my architecture. So at each and every API layer, I'm going to add an API policy. Okay, so here I'm maybe we can see like how do we add a JWT policy to it, or any of the policy. How do we achieve it at one place? Okay, so let's get back again to our API manager. So API manager is a second place where which is actually responsible for managing all your APIs. You can apply alerts on your API. You can apply security policies on your API. You can manage your instance, and this is not just for MuleSoft application. No matter where your API is deployed. Suppose if I have one API which is deployed on maybe AWS and other is on Google Cloud or Azure anywhere, so I can still manage all of them at one single place using the API manager. So this is how I've created an instance for my API, and the security policies which I've been speaking about. So you can definitely design your security policies from scratch, but there are, I mean, your custom policies, writing your any of the code, and then you can publish it. But there are already pre-existing policies, the security policies which are which are available for you, and they are not just from security capabilities; they are from like quality of service, compliance, transformation, and troubleshooting as well. But as we are mainly speaking about API security, we'll just go into the security tab and we'll see like what are the different policies we already have, the pre-existing one, and how easy it is to configure them. So I can see I've already applied the shareability policy. Maybe we can see basic authentication policy and see how easy it is to apply. I mean, all you need to do is just enter your username, password. You can select which API you want to apply your API policy. You can give username, password like MuleSoft, and then just apply the policy, and it will be applied to my API, which is deployed on the same cloud as well. I can have multiple API policies for particular API. I can group them. I can have some alerts created as well. If suppose if my API is not having a proper response time, if I'm getting some response time failure alerts, I can have alert, and the email will be sent out to me. Basically, you can create some different contracts as well. You can have your own SLA which will be saying about your incoming traffic. So this is all about your API management and security, which comes at one place. So as we have already applied the basic authentication policy, let me just click one of them. So yeah, this policy we have also applied JWT policy. Let me see. Let me show you guys the configuration of this policy. I mean, you might be having this conception that JWT policy it's like a authentication authorization policy. It might be difficult to configure, but all you need to do is just select your algorithm, whichever you want. It could be HMAC or RSA or anything, and then the shareability key length. You can have your own key. You can validate the claims and all as well. So previously you must have seen you have been doing all this validation from the maybe by writing your custom code or your own Java code, but this is like quite simple and easy to manage and also at one place. Okay, so all you need to do is just save this policy, and that will be applied. So if you try to hit the request to this, it should be it should be giving you an error just because I have already applied a token. But suppose if I am taking off the token, it should be giving me a failure that zero token is required. So this is how I'm actually applying security at each and every endpoint. Okay, and the token generation and everything you can definitely do using the third party tool, Okta, OAuth, or any other identity service provider. Okay, so this was actually all about the API security on the API owner part, like how we can help Dan as an API owner to achieve API security. So apart from this, like apart from a developer or an API owner perspective, what else you can do? So you make sure that you're building your application or your APIs on a secure foundation. Secure foundation as in if you're in a government project, you're following the government compliances or your organization's policy, the security policy, and you're making sure all the regulations and everything is taken care of. Deploy your API on a secure environment. Make sure your environment on which you're hosting your APIs is also protected one. Okay, and all this APIs and services which needs to be like constantly monitored. Okay, and maybe you can make them in a group where it gets easy for you to manage it, club them in a groups and into API contracts, so that you're actually like reapply you're being consistent throughout the APIs with the policies and how are you applying them. So the standardization also comes into place. So with this, we have seen how we have actually implemented all the four pillars. I mean, what was firstly the need for API security, like what are the issues with API security, how uh, what are the industry issues we have been facing, and what is the need for API security, what is zero trust security, what are the four pillars. That is, firstly, don't trust anyone and always verify at each and every stage, give the least amount of privileges, and by default it should be denied. A third one being you're going to monitor and have a full control, proper visibility, and a centralized access. The fourth one, I mean, you're going to manage all the APIs and secure them at one place. We have also seen the Mulesoft Anypoint platform, the capabilities, how you can build your APIs, you can share your APIs with others, you can host and manage your APIs at one place. And how do we apply policies? So there could be different kinds of policy. We have just seen like basic authentication and durability, but you could be having any of your policy of your choice. And there could be some places where you're not actually having a policy, or maybe no security as well. But make sure you're doing it. I mean, you're not doing that, you're just applying security policy, even a very basic one, at every stage, because that's what zero trust security states as well. Like, you're not trusting anyone, you're making sure and you're verifying that at each and every stage you're verifying them. So with that, I'm not sure. Like, yeah, the next step would be like you can join us like on Mulesoft community. You can learn more about the API management or iPaaS tool, and how you can build your APIs, how you can get started with the API development. You can watch us live on Twitch and learn more about like how cool things, what are the different stuff we have been doing. You can try our Anypoint platform for free. So the one which we actually saw today, the Anypoint platform, it's you can get a 40 days free trial account, and you can get your hands on it. You can try different components, you can try API security, API management, API building, the entire API life cycle using that one singular platform. So do give it a try. And then, yeah, just a small help. I mean, you can just this is the book like Mulesoft for Salesforce developers. So if you're someone who's actually looking to get started with Mulesoft, on your Mulesoft journey to learn Mulesoft, maybe you all can uh, get this thing on Amazon, or maybe you can share with your friends who's like looking to get started on the Mulesoft journey. And yeah, so now maybe we can just take any questions if you guys have, or you all can reach out to me as well on LinkedIn, Twitter, or yeah, I'll be happy to take all the questions you guys have.
Thank you
So
so much,
Thank
thank
Akshata.
you.
you.
Unfortunately, we are running late a bit. So I would suggest everybody to go to our DevSecOn community on Discord and try to ask your questions there. People are
Definitely.
more than happy to help you. Ashata will be more than happy to help you. So thank you for this great talk. I would love to chat even more. It was amazing. But I have to
Thank
move
you.
on to the next one because I see. Rowan is already in backstage waiting for us. So thank you so much. We will keep
Thank
in
you so
touch.
much for having me. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely, and
Bye
see you
bye.
Thank
later.
you.
Cheers.